honored guests, esteemed colleagues from faculty and staff, proud parents, families, friends, and most especially, dear graduates. At graduation day, you can rely on three things that have constantly happened at every graduation. There's always beautiful weather, sunny and much too warm to easily wearing these prestigious gowns. There's always a president who provides a mostly too long, more or less, mostly less interesting speech on a topic of which he or she thinks it might be of general interest, matching to the atmosphere and meaning of a graduation. And in the end, there's always a lame joke on the weather. Due to the second issue, the too lengthy speech, I skip the joke part. Yes, it is too warm under the gowns, live with it. But you cannot expect from me as a professor by training to ignore the outstanding opportunity that I'm allowed to deliver a speech on a more serious topic of my own choice, and more than 1,000 people have to listen in the next 10 minutes without any chance to escape. Hence, here it comes. A graduation ceremony is a very special event in our lives because we sense that we have reached a transition from something which has become familiar and comfortable in the last years here on campus, your home, to something completely new and uncertain. For us, faculty and staff, it is from proudly letting you go to excitingly looking forward to welcome the next batch of students in fall. For you, our dear graduates, it is as if you had paused to take a breath, to reflect for a moment, as if you were for a long-lasting second on a small island of disengagement where nobody wants anything from you, as if you could remove yourselves for a tiny span of time, escaping the pressure of expectations before being confronted with them again. We all know these fleeting interim moments between the realm of disengagement and continuous exposure to the power of reality. Maybe you can feel this kind of philosophical offline-online configuration. We all know that brief moment of triumph when we reject the tyranny of possibilities and expectations and simply allow ourselves to be sufficient for ourselves. Rousseau called this particular moment reverie. We normal people call it freedom. Freedom is like many other things. We do not notice it until we risk to lose it. That is why I would like to speak about freedom today. We understand freedom as the experience and possibility of mastering the despotic forces stifling the spirit of liberty. But it ought to be said that today's understanding of freedom as individual liberty was not always the measure of things, and we should be aware of our modern bias. The Greek and Roman ancients, as one of the original sources of universal education, were familiar with the concept of personal freedom, but understood freedom more as a subject of political theory, taking philosophical precedence in Plato and Plinius in the Polis and the Republic. It was not until we modern people came along that freedom was taken to be the personal experience of an individual who wished, to a greater or lesser extent, to escape the anonymous constraints of an oppressive reality. The idea of the human being as a disengaged, dreaming subject of freedom, avoiding the world of achievement, is a break from traditional ideas of freedom. That is why Kant, in his time, considered Rousseau as the new Newton. This subjective, individual perspective on freedom is only partly, because the future is only now being understood in modern times as that vast realm of possibilities which we today take to mean future and which constantly causes us to reach out for opportunities and puts ourselves under immense pressure. This is a great gain in a way as it drives our individual and collective success and growth. But we also run the risk of subjecting ourselves without reflection to an own-made despotism of rivalry to be higher, wider, faster, and more. Freedom in our time is under increasing pressure in many places, politically, philosophically, socially, economically, and even technologically. Indeed, even its very own value is now sometimes questioned. This is where we all are obliged. We carry the responsibility of applying our capacity to reason in order to counteract an erosion of freedom. In foregoing freedom, we lose more than the ability to shape our own lives in the way we want to live them. No, freedom is the indispensable prerequisite for the greatest gift that we can give each other in an enlightened society. That is generosity. By generosity, I mean an inner attitude. It is an attitude that is not satisfied with what is commonplace, easy to achieve, and expected. The attitude of generosity seeks the unusual, the improbable, the exceptional, so as to emancipate people from all kinds of despotism and tyranny. Pretty much exactly the guiding idea of our university. In other words, the reason why we are gathered here today to celebrate. You, our graduates, have embraced this attitude. Allow me to put it like this. You have been generous to yourselves. You have taken the plunge by studying because you wanted to achieve something special. Bildung, education in its best understanding as a way of liberation, raising awareness and emancipation. And you have been generous to others. You allowed other students, the professors, members of the staff, to closely interact with you in this journey of education, which does not run along a one-way street. You inspired others, but you also let others to inspire you. And so you showed yourself open to the unexpected, to spend time, nerves, resources on this process of exchanging ideas, arguments, perspectives, is a very generous act from which all parties involved can benefit to the better of their individual as well as their collective freedom by education. Therefore, dear graduates, I would like to cordially thank you for your generosity. After all, it does seem somewhat unlikely that a university with students from over 100 nations, of enormous cultural diversity, occupying a very small campus somewhere in the north of Central Europe, could be a deep source of inspiration. But that is precisely what happens here every day, and that is our and my personal vision. If we embrace an attitude of generosity, we create a feeling of unity and freedom. This feeling has touched all of us here, regardless of political opinion, religion, color, gender, sexual orientation, or whatsoever. That is what constitutes the special energy of this university. I'd like to use this point, this vision, for the opportunity to step aside and to especially thank my fellow colleagues from the faculty for their daily tremendous contributions to this vision. You make this place a very special one, also for me personally. You are the core reason why Jacobs University has achieved an outstanding reputation within the short time of only 2 decades, like it was not only certified by the Times Higher Education or lately by the U Multi-Rank again, but also by all these little stories around research, teaching, transfer that makes this place so unique. Therefore, let me state, you are very generous to do so. Thank you very much. But why does generosity produce a feeling of unity? Once we have experienced generosity by tasting, for example, the academic freedom to pursue education for education's sake only, once have experienced generosity and with its disengagement, serenity and freedom, then we become, and this is the crucial point for unity, more accessible. In other words, we are ready to engage. So with freedom, we discover our own accessibility. Sartre called this embracing of burdens engagement. Engagement may not resolve the modern problems of freedom in human collectives and societies, but engaged freedom makes our lives more respectful, tolerant, warm, friendly, in short, more human. We have the enormous privilege of experiencing this here every day anew. Therefore, not only for the faculty, but all people working, living, learning, studying, researching together, thank you very much for your engagement. Our campus provides zones in which each person can discover his or her freedom to embrace an attitude of being open to the unexpected, to generosity. Freedom in this sense has nothing to do with allowing ourselves to go to pieces. On the contrary, engaged freedom, ladies and gentlemen, can certainly survive the reality check of idealism. It has nothing to fear from those who interpret freedom as a resonance to external causes. Freedom feeds less on autonomy, choice, will, reason, or a neural storm of the brain. Freedom feeds instead on an inner motivation to be generous. This is used to be called a noble cast of mind. All the same, my feeling is that engaged freedom is more important today than ever before, meaning that we have to cultivate our accessibility alongside to our freedom. The progress in cultivating our accessibility is also based on education. Progress in education, in turn, is based on the epistemological progress. In order to be able to contribute to this progress, the sciences need freedom. To provide this freedom, generosity of all parties within the scientific system is crucial, but this is also true for the generosity of all responsible institutions around our university, whether they are, let's say, in Bremen or in Zurich. Scholarship requires freedom, but freedom, as we have seen, requires engaged generosity. To conclude, if I look once more into your faces, dear graduates, I'm very confident you have been able to experience generosity and you will hand it on to others. You have experienced the inspiration of unity that furthered your dreams of freedom. You have held yourselves to rules and you have not understood freedom as a license to do nothing or whatever you want without being responsible for the repercussions of your behavior to others as well as to yourself. That is why you, wherever you will end up living, will pave the way to a free society. You have, as it were, acquired the citizenship of engaged freedom. So your obligation is to guard it. Therefore, let me end with the words of Václav Havel, the Czech human rights activist and former president. Freedom is like the sea. The individual waves cannot do much, but the power of the surf is irresistible. Dear graduates, ride the waves, enjoy the surf. Congratulations, class of 2019. Thank you very much.